Christmas Eve at the Fire Lily restaurant glowed with golden lights and the scent of roasted pine. Clinton Hale, a single father working part-time as a server, moved carefully between tables carrying a tray of wine glasses. At table 7, VIP executives celebrated loudly. Clinton angled toward them, but a businessman stepped backward without warning. The tray tilted. A glass of red wine lifted into the air and splashed across the crimson dress of CEO Alexandra Whitmore, the most powerful woman in the room. Everyone froze. Clinton trembled, waiting to be fired. But Alexandra only stared at him, then said coldly, "You'll repay me with a date." The crowd erupted. Clinton stood speechless. What game was she playing? Clinton Hale was 35 years old and had learned long ago that pride was a luxury men in his position couldn't afford. He'd been a chef once, talented enough that restaurants across the city had competed for his skills. His palate sensitive enough to distinguish between wines aged years apart. Then came the accident, the chemical fumes that had stolen his sense of smell and left it damaged even now. A chef without a complete palate was like a painter going blind. So he'd left the profession he loved and taken whatever work kept food on his daughter's plate. Now he served meals at the Fire Lily, working double shifts during the holiday season to afford the Christmas presents Louisa had circled in the toy store catalog. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his hands calloused from years of labor, his manner quiet in the way of men who'd learned to carry burdens without complaint. His daughter was everything to him. Louisa Hale, 7 years old, with dark curls that bounced when she ran, and a smile that could light up their small apartment. She believed in Santa Claus and wished on stars, and had written that she wanted her father to stop being sad and for someone to love him the way she did. Clinton worked his shifts and came home tired, but never too tired to read bedtime stories or check homework or listen to her talk about the pictures she'd drawn. Christmas was the time he worked hardest, picking up every extra hour because he wanted her to have the magic of the season, even if it cost him sleep. Alexandra Whitmore was 32 years old and ruled her technology empire with precision that left competitors breathless. She wore her blonde hair in waves past her shoulders, her dresses always red and always fitted, her heels sharp enough to be weapons. Whitmore Tech had made her one of the youngest female CEOs in the country, her company's innovations reshaping industries from healthcare to finance. She'd built her success on 18-hour workdays and a refusal to let emotion cloud judgment. People called her the Ice Queen, and she'd never bothered to correct them because the reputation kept them at a distance where they couldn't hurt her. Her mother had died when Alexandra was 12 on Christmas Eve, collapsing in the snow outside their mansion while carolers sang. Her father, Henry Whitmore, had raised her with iron discipline after that, teaching her that sentiment was weakness and tears were failure. She'd learned to bury grief so deep it couldn't surface, to evaluate every interaction for strategic value. She hated Christmas because it reminded her of loss. This year, she'd only attended the restaurant dinner because Flynn Cross, an investment director whose firm held shares in Whitmore Tech, had insisted. He'd been pursuing her for months, his real interest in her wealth and connections barely concealed. George Merritt owned the Fire Lily and knew quality when he saw it, which was why he'd hired Clinton despite the man's lack of fine dining experience. Clinton showed up on time, treated customers with respect, and never complained. But George also understood power, and he knew Alexandra Whitmore could destroy his business with a phone call. When she'd stood up, dripping with wine, George's heart had nearly stopped. Now, watching her demand a date, he didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. Flynn Cross sat at the table with his arms crossed, his handsome face tight with displeasure, his eyes following Clinton with cold assessment. Bridget Lane stood by the kitchen doors watching Clinton with something like hope in her expression. She'd worked alongside him for months, learning to read his silences, occasionally staying late to help him prep. She'd never said what she felt, afraid he'd withdraw into the careful distance he kept from everyone. Henry Whitmore wasn't at the restaurant that night, but his influence followed his daughter everywhere, reminding her that the Whitmore name meant something. The wine had been an accident, pure physics and bad timing. But Alexandra had seized it as an opportunity for escape. She'd felt Flynn's hand on her arm earlier, his grip just a shade too tight, making her skin crawl. She needed a reason to refuse him, something public enough that he couldn't argue. So when the wine spilled and the server stood there pale with horror, she'd seen her chance. The date demand wasn't real, just theater, a way to create distance from Flynn's expectations. She hadn't expected the server to look at her with such open confusion, his brown eyes searching her face, his whole body rigid with the fear of losing his job. Something in his expression made her hesitate, made her wonder if she'd just made things more complicated. But it was too late to take it back. The room was watching. Flynn's face had gone dark with anger. The game had started. Clinton stood in George's office 20 minutes later. George paced, his gray hair disheveled. "She's serious," George said. "Her assistant just called. She expects you tomorrow night at Celestine, that French place downtown. 8 o'clock. Clinton's throat felt tight. "I can't afford to eat there." George stopped pacing. "You're not paying. She is." "Clinton, I know this is strange, but if you refuse, she could bury this restaurant. I'm asking you to do this. For all of us." Clinton thought of Louisa at home with the babysitter, probably asleep with her stuffed rabbit. He thought of the rent due in 2 weeks and the Christmas presents on layaway. He thought of his pride, which had taken beatings before and survived. "One date," he said. George's shoulders sagged with relief. The date was scheduled like a business meeting, complete with time, location, and expectations delivered via email. Clinton borrowed a suit from a coworker and took 2 buses to reach Celestine. The restaurant was all white tablecloths and hushed conversations. Alexandra was already seated, her red dress replaced by a black one that left her shoulders bare. "Sit," she said, not quite a command. A waiter appeared immediately. Alexandra ordered for them both in flawless French, then folded her hands on the table. "We'll be here for 2 hours," she said. "You'll eat, we'll have minimal conversation, and then we'll leave separately. This satisfies your obligation. Don't ask about my personal life. Don't expect this to become anything more than what it is." Clinton recognized the boundaries of someone who'd been hurt and decided never to be hurt again. He could have simply nodded and played along. But something in her rigid posture made him speak instead. "Why did you really ask me here?" Alexandra's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "I told you. You ruined my dress. You could have sent me a bill or had me fired, but you chose this instead. Why?" "There was someone at that dinner I needed to avoid. You provided a convenient excuse." The honesty surprised him. "So, I'm a shield, a temporary one." The food arrived, course after course. Between courses, he told her about Louisa, not because Alexandra had invited the topic, but because talking about his daughter made him feel less like he was drowning. He described the pictures Louisa drew, the way she insisted on checking every present under the tree to guess what was inside. He mentioned Christmas morning traditions, pancakes shaped like snowmen, the small artificial tree in their apartment. Alexandra listened without commenting, her expression unchanged, but she didn't stop him from talking. When the meal ended and they stood to leave, she looked at him for a long moment. "You're different than I expected," she said. The photo appeared online the next morning. Someone had captured the moment, Alexandra in her wine-stained dress standing close to Clinton. The caption read like gossip. By noon, the story had spread everywhere. Flynn Cross made sure it reached board members with carefully phrased concerns about Alexandra's judgment. Within 24 hours, Alexandra's office was fielding calls from investors worried about her public image. Henry Whitmore arrived at her office unannounced, his silver hair perfectly styled, his face rigid with fury. "Explain this circus," he said, dropping a tablet on her desk showing the photo. Alexandra stood behind her desk. "It's none of your concern. Everything you do is my concern. You're making us look weak. This man is nobody. He has nothing, and you've just told the world that he's worthy of your time." Alexandra felt something cold settle in her chest. "He's a person. He made a mistake. I dealt with it how I chose. By humiliating yourself, you will end this immediately. You will release a statement saying it was all a misunderstanding, and you will accept Flynn's invitation to the gala next week." Alexandra met her father's eyes. "Get out of my office," Henry straightened. "You're my daughter. You'll do as I say, or you'll find out how quickly I can make your professional life very difficult." He left without another word. Clinton knew about the photo because Bridget had shown it to him. The comments were brutal. People called him a gold digger, an opportunist. Others called Alexandra crazy, accused her of abusing her power. Clinton wanted to disappear, to find work somewhere his face wasn't recognizable, somewhere Louisa wouldn't hear other kids talking about her father. George called him into the office again. "Alexandra's team reached out," George said. "They want you to know that you're not responsible for any of this, that if you need time off, they'll compensate you for lost wages." Clinton thought about Alexandra listening when he talked about his daughter, even though she'd made clear she didn't want personal conversation. "I don't want her money," Clinton said. "I just want this to be over." But that night, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Alexandra's voice came through, tense and controlled. "I need to apologize. This situation has become more complicated than I intended. If you want me to make a public statement clearing your name, I will." Clinton sat on the edge of his bed, the apartment quiet. "That'll just make it worse. Let it die naturally. My father wants me to deny everything, to say you're nothing to me." Clinton felt something twist in his chest. "Maybe you should. Maybe that's easier for both of us." There was silence on the line. Then Alexandra said, "I don't know how to do easy. I only know how to do what's necessary." She hung up. Clinton sat holding the phone, wondering how a spilled glass of wine had turned into feeling something for a woman he barely knew. The snowstorm hit 3 days before Christmas, turning the city into a frozen maze. Alexandra had stayed late at the office, trying to ignore the board meeting scheduled for the morning where her father and Flynn had aligned votes to question her decisions. She left at 10, her mind already planning her defense. Her car started fine, but she made it 4 blocks before the engine coughed and died, leaving her sitting in darkness while snow piled against the windshield. She tried her phone. Dead. She tried the ignition again. Nothing. The temperature was dropping fast, her red dress completely inadequate for the weather. She was alone on a street where nothing was open. She thought about staying in the car, waiting for morning. But morning was hours away, and she could already feel the cold settling into her bones. She thought about her mother, dying in the snow, and felt panic rise. She got out of the car and started walking. Clinton was at home reading Louisa a story about reindeer when his phone rang. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Alexandra's voice was barely audible, shaking with cold. "My car broke down. My phone's dying. I'm on 7th and Market. I don't know who else to call." Clinton was already moving, grabbing his coat. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." He found her 15 minutes later, standing under a broken streetlight, her lips blue. Clinton stripped off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, then lifted her, carrying her back to his old sedan. He cranked the heat as high as it would go, driving carefully through streets that had become ice rinks, taking her to his apartment because it was closer. Inside, he settled her on his couch, piling blankets around her, making hot tea. Louisa appeared in her pajamas, staring at the beautiful woman shivering under their quilts. "Daddy, is she okay?" Clinton nodded. "She will be. Go back to bed, sweetheart." But Louisa walked to her room and returned with a pair of hand-knitted Christmas socks, red and green with snowflakes. She held them out to Alexandra. "You can wear these. They're warm." Alexandra looked at the small girl with her serious expression and generous heart, and something cracked in her chest. She took the socks, her hands still trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. Louisa smiled and climbed into Clinton's lap. Alexandra watched them, father and daughter, and felt tears burn behind her eyes. She couldn't remember the last time she'd cried. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt safe. The night stretched long and quiet. Louisa eventually fell asleep on the couch beside Alexandra. Clinton made more tea, sitting in the worn armchair, watching Alexandra's face as she stared at the small, artificial Christmas tree in the corner. "Tell me about your mother," Clinton said softly. Alexandra's hand moved to stroke Louisa's hair. "She was everything my father wasn't. Warm, open. She loved Christmas, loved decorating and baking, and making everything feel magical." Alexandra's voice caught. "She died on Christmas Eve. Heart attack. She was outside decorating the porch when it happened. By the time we found her, it was too late." Clinton didn't say he was sorry. He just listened. "My father shut down after that," Alexandra continued. "He removed all the Christmas decorations, forbade us from celebrating, said sentiment was dangerous because it made you weak. He taught me that business came first, that emotions were liabilities, that people would use any weakness against you. I believed him because I was 12 and he was all I had left. And now I'm 32 years old and I don't know who I am underneath all the armor." She looked at Clinton, tears finally spilling over. "I don't know how to be anything but cold." Clinton moved to sit beside her, careful not to disturb Louisa. "You accepted your daughter's socks from a stranger," he said. "You called me when you needed help, even though we barely know each other. You're not as cold as you think you are. You're just scared." Alexandra turned to face him, her mascara smudged, her perfect hair falling loose. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "I'm terrified that if I let anyone close, they'll leave, or they'll die, or they'll use me and walk away when they're done. I'm terrified that there's nothing real underneath this surface, that I've been playing a role so long I don't remember how to be human." Clinton reached out slowly and took her hand. "You're real. You're sitting here in my apartment wearing my daughter's socks, telling me things you've never told anyone else. That's real. That's human." Alexandra stayed through the night. In the morning, Clinton made pancakes while snow continued to fall outside. Alexandra called her assistant to cancel meetings, her voice firmer than it had been the night before. She stayed for breakfast, eating pancakes at Clinton's kitchen table while Louisa told her about school and showed her drawings. When the snow finally stopped, Clinton drove her home. Her mansion loomed huge and empty. Alexandra stood in her driveway and didn't want to go inside. Clinton saw it in her face. "You could come back," he said, "for dinner sometime. Louisa would love to see you again." Alexandra looked at him, this man who worked 2 jobs and raised a daughter alone and somehow still had room to be kind. She wanted to say yes, but her phone was buzzing with messages, her father's name appearing repeatedly, and reality was crashing back. "I don't think that's a good idea," she said, even though it hurt to say it. Clinton nodded like he'd expected that answer. "If you change your mind, you know where to find me." He drove away, leaving Alexandra standing in front of her empty house, feeling more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. The board meeting happened 2 days before Christmas. Flynn presented his evidence like a prosecutor. The photos splashed across a projector screen, his voice smooth and concerned, as he questioned whether Alexandra's personal choices reflected the judgment required to lead a company. Henry Whitmore sat at the head of the table, his silence more damning than any words. Other board members murmured agreement. Alexandra sat alone, watching her world dismantle itself, watching men who'd once praised her vision now question her sanity, all because she'd shown a moment of humanity to someone they considered beneath their station. Flynn made his final argument. I move that Alexandra be placed on temporary leave while we conduct a full review of her recent decisions. We need stability. The motion was seconded. Votes were called. Alexandra watched the hands rise, her own board turning against her. The vote passed. Alexandra was suspended from her own company, effective immediately. She stood, gathered her papers, and walked out with her head high, refusing to let them see her break. But in the parking garage, sitting in her car, she finally let herself scream, pounding her fists against the steering wheel, feeling everything she'd built crumble because she'd made the mistake of caring about someone, because she'd let herself be vulnerable for one night. Clinton was working the dinner shift when Bridget pulled him aside. "You need to see this," she said, showing him her phone. The business news site displayed a headline about Alexandra's suspension. Clinton felt his chest tighten. He knew this was his fault. He thought about Louisa wearing her Christmas socks, about Alexandra's tears in his apartment. After his shift, he took 3 buses to reach Alexandra's mansion, arriving past midnight. He rang the doorbell. When Alexandra answered, her face was exhausted, her eyes red. "Clinton, what are you doing here?" "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry that knowing me cost you everything. I'm going to fix this. I'll go to the press and tell them the truth, that you were never interested in me, that the whole thing was a misunderstanding." Alexandra stared at him. "You think that'll fix this? This isn't about you, Clinton. This is about power. This is about men who don't want women making their own choices. Then what do I do?" Alexandra's expression softened slightly. "You go home to your daughter. You live your life. You forget about me." "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because I care about you," Clinton said, the words raw and honest. "Because you're the first person in years who made me feel like maybe I could be more than just someone getting by. Because Louisa asked me if you were going to come back for Christmas, and I didn't know what to tell her." Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. "I can't be what you need. I can't be the person who shows up for Christmas dinner and plays happy family. I don't know how. And right now, I need to focus on getting my company back. I can't do that and worry about hurting you at the same time." Clinton understood. "Okay," he said. "But if you ever need anything, if you ever just want to talk, I'm here." He left. Alexandra watched him go, then closed the door and sank down against it, crying harder than she had since her mother died. Louisa Hale was 7 years old and believed in Christmas miracles. So when she woke up 3 days before the holiday and decided her father needed help, she took the bus downtown by herself. She'd heard her father on the phone, heard the sadness in his voice when he said he didn't think they'd see Alexandra again. Louisa had noticed how happy her father had been when Alexandra stayed with them. She'd seen the way Alexandra looked at him, like he was important. Louisa wanted her father to be happy, so she took her pink backpack and rode the bus to the tall building where Whitmore Tech had its offices, walking into the lobby with the confidence of a child who'd never been told she couldn't do something. Eventually, Alexandra's assistant came down, asking what this was about. Louisa handed her a box. Inside was a hospital bracelet from when Louisa was born and a note written in faded ink. "My mother left this for my daddy," Louisa explained. She wrote that if he ever found someone who deserved his love, he should show them this. I think Miss Alexandra deserves to know. The assistant took the box upstairs. 20 minutes later, Alexandra appeared in the lobby, tired but beautiful. She knelt in front of Louisa. "Your father doesn't know you're here, does he?" Louisa shook her head. "I wanted to tell you something. My daddy's sad. He's been sad since my mom left, and he tries to hide it, but I know. And when you stayed with us, he wasn't sad anymore. I think you made him happy, and I think he made you happy too. Isn't that what matters?" Alexandra read the note again, her vision blurring. The handwriting was shaky, written by someone very sick. "I'm sorry I'm leaving you alone with our baby, but I know you'll be an amazing father. You're the kindest man I ever met. Don't let what I did make you stop believing in love. One day you'll meet someone who deserves all that goodness you have inside you. When that happens, don't be afraid. Choose love. Choose happiness. She deserves you." Alexandra looked at this small, brave girl who'd come all the way across the city to deliver a message about love, and she felt something shift inside her, the last wall finally crumbling. "Thank you for showing me this," Alexandra said. "Would you like me to take you home?" They took a taxi together, Louisa chattering about Christmas. Alexandra held the box and thought about choices, about what happened when you let fear control your life versus what happened when you chose courage instead. Bridget Lane found the video file 3 days before Christmas, buried in the security footage. She'd been reviewing recordings when she'd noticed Flynn Cross standing near the kitchen hallway, his phone out, filming. She watched him step backward deliberately, timing his movement to coincide with Clinton's approach, his shoulder hitting Clinton's hip with just enough force to cause the accident. It was clear, damning, undeniable. Flynn had engineered the whole thing. Bridget sent the file to George, who sent it to Alexandra's lawyers. More investigation uncovered other evidence, recordings of private board meetings, financial documents Flynn had stolen, evidence of insider trading and market manipulation. Flynn hadn't been trying to protect the company. He'd been trying to destroy it so he could acquire it cheaply. The evidence went to the Securities and Exchange Commission, to the board, to prosecutors. Within 24 hours, Flynn Cross was arrested at his office, walked out in handcuffs while news cameras recorded every moment. Christmas Eve morning, Alexandra walked into the Fire Lily wearing jeans and a red sweater, looking nothing like the CEO who'd ruled boardrooms. The lunch service was just beginning. Alexandra walked straight to the center of the dining room and raised her voice. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" The restaurant went quiet. Clinton emerged from the kitchen. Alexandra took a breath. "My name is Alexandra Whitmore. 3 weeks ago, one of your servers accidentally spilled wine on me. I responded by demanding he take me on a date. That was strange and unfair and put him in a horrible position. What I should have done was recognize that accidents happen and that he's a good man who made an honest mistake while working hard to support his daughter. Instead, I used him as a shield from my own problems, and when that caused him trouble, I didn't defend him strongly enough." She turned to look directly at Clinton. "I'm here to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what happened. You didn't deserve to be dragged into my mess. And you definitely didn't deserve to have your name attached to lies about your character." Clinton moved toward her slowly. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did." Alexandra held up the box Louisa had brought. "Your daughter came to see me. She showed me something that made me realize I've been spending my entire life running from anything real because I was afraid of getting hurt. But the truth is, I've hurt myself more by refusing to feel anything than I ever would have by taking a chance on someone good." The restaurant was completely silent. Alexandra continued, "I got my company back this morning. The board voted to reinstate me fully after evidence proved Flynn Cross had been manipulating information to stage a takeover. My father's been removed from the board for his role in helping Flynn. I have control of everything I built." She paused. But, standing here right now, that's not what matters. What matters is that I met someone who showed me what kindness looks like, what real strength is, what it means to work hard, not for glory, but for the people you love. And I walked away from him because I was too scared to admit I wanted something more than success. Clinton stood in front of her now, close enough to touch. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done being scared. I'm saying I want to know if that dinner invitation is still open. If Louisa would still like me to come over. If maybe we could start over without all the drama and lies and just see what happens when two people actually try to know each other. Clinton's face transformed, the worry and sadness lifting, replaced by something that looked like hope. We're having Christmas dinner tomorrow. Nothing fancy, just us and the neighbor who watches Louisa sometimes. You'd be welcome. Alexandra smiled, really smiled, the expression lighting up her whole face. I'd like that. The restaurant erupted in applause. Clinton took Alexandra's hand, leading her outside where snow had started to fall again. They stood on the sidewalk, but for a moment, it was just the two of them. I never stopped thinking about you, Clinton said. Every day I wondered how you were doing, if you were okay. I was thinking about you too, Alexandra admitted, about how different my life felt when I was with you. Alexandra squeezed his hand. I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Christmas Day arrived with blue skies and sunshine reflecting off snow. Clinton's apartment smelled like cinnamon rolls and coffee, Louisa's laughter echoing from her room. Alexandra arrived at 10 in the morning, carrying bags of groceries and a wrapped present for Louisa. When Clinton opened the door, he saw her smile and knew that whatever happened next, they'd figure it out together. They made breakfast as a team, Alexandra following Clinton's instructions in the kitchen. Louisa sat at the table coloring Christmas cards, occasionally looking up to watch Alexandra and her father work side by side. After breakfast, they opened presents. Louisa got books and art supplies and the dollhouse she'd circled in the catalog. And she made Alexandra open the box she'd brought, revealing a hand-drawn picture of 3 people holding hands in front of a Christmas tree. That's us, Louisa explained. Our family. Alexandra felt tears threaten again. But they were good tears, healing tears. She hugged Louisa tight, then looked at Clinton over his daughter's head. Our family, she repeated, testing the words. They invited the neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd looked after Louisa countless times when Clinton worked late, and they cooked together, filling the small apartment with warmth and conversation. There was no performance here, no need to be anyone but themselves. Alexandra told stories about growing up in a mansion that felt like a museum, and Mrs. Patterson shared memories of her own childhood, and Louisa described the nativity play at school where she'd been an angel. Clinton made roasted chicken and potatoes, simple food but prepared with care. In the evening, after Mrs. Patterson went home and Louisa finally fell asleep on the couch. Exhausted from excitement, Clinton and Alexandra sat together looking at the blinking lights on the small tree. 1 year ago, I was alone in my mansion, working through Christmas, convinced that was all life was supposed to be, Alexandra said. And 1 year ago, I was here with Louisa, telling myself that being her father was enough, that I didn't need anything else, Clinton replied. And now I think we were both wrong. I think we both needed exactly this. Alexandra leaned against him, his arm coming around her shoulders, pulling her close. Through the window, they could see snow starting to fall again, soft and gentle, covering the city in white. Somewhere across town, Alexandra's mansion stood empty, its halls silent. But here, in this small apartment, with its second-hand furniture and homemade ornaments, with this man and his daughter who'd shown her what love actually meant, Alexandra finally felt like she'd come home. Louisa stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about reindeer. and both adults smiled. Tomorrow, there would be challenges. Alexandra would have to restructure her company, repair relationships with board members who doubted her, and navigate the fallout from Flynn's arrest. Clinton would still be working his shifts, still getting by on modest means, still facing the daily struggles of single parenthood. But they wouldn't face those challenges alone anymore. They'd face them together, with the kind of partnership that came from seeing each other clearly, from accepting each other fully, from choosing each other despite every reason the world said they shouldn't fit. The Christmas lights blinked their patterns across the walls, and outside, the city settled into the quiet peace of the holiday. Inside, three people who'd each been lonely in their own way had found something better than perfection. They'd found each other, and that, Clinton thought as he held Alexandra close while his daughter slept safely nearby, was the only miracle he needed.